Everyone is talking about who will win this match. Some are looking at talent. Others are looking at recent form. Some believe home support will push the United States forward. Others think Paraguay's resilience could make life uncomfortable for any opponent. But there is another battle unfolding beneath the surface, a battle that may matter far more than possession, star players, or even tactics. Because when the FIFA World Cup arrives, football changes. The game becomes heavier. Every touch means more. Every mistake feels bigger. Every missed opportunity lingers longer. And suddenly, matches stop being decided only by quality. They start being decided by pressure. That is why USA versus Paraguay is so fascinating. At first glance, it appears straightforward. A United States team playing on home soil, energized by familiar surroundings and supported by a crowd desperate to see a deep tournament run. Against a Paraguay side entering the tournament with less attention, fewer headlines, and fewer expectations. But World Cup matches rarely follow the script everyone expects. In fact, some of the most memorable World Cup stories began when a supposedly comfortable favorite discovered that the real challenge wasn't the opponent standing in front of them. It was the pressure building inside them. And that may be the hidden battle that decides everything here. Because the United States enters this match carrying something powerful: expectation. For years, American football has been growing. The talent pool is deeper, the confidence is higher, the ambition is greater. Playing a World Cup at home creates opportunities most nations only dream about. The crowd can become an extra player. The stadium can become a source of energy. Momentum can build rapidly. One successful attack can feel like an explosion. One defensive stand can lift an entire arena. These advantages are real, but advantages sometimes come with a hidden cost. Because the louder the support becomes, the greater the expectation becomes. And expectations can create pressure. Pressure changes decision-making. Pressure affects confidence. Pressure can make players hesitate when they would normally act instinctively. A pass that feels simple in qualification suddenly feels dangerous. A shooting opportunity becomes a moment of doubt. The desire to avoid mistakes can become stronger than the desire to create opportunities. And when that happens, teams can begin playing not to lose instead of playing to win. That possibility hangs quietly over this match. Not because the United States lacks quality, quite the opposite. The more talented a team is believed to be, the more pressure there is to prove it. And that leads us directly to Paraguay. Because Paraguay enters this match from a completely different emotional position. There is freedom in being underestimated. Freedom changes everything. Teams carrying massive expectations often spend energy protecting themselves from failure. Teams carrying fewer expectations can spend that same energy chasing opportunities. That psychological difference can become extremely important. Paraguay does not need to dominate the headlines before kickoff. Paraguay does not need to convince the world they belong. They simply need to believe it themselves. And historically, teams with that mindset can become very dangerous opponents, especially in tournament football. Because tournament football rewards patience, it rewards discipline, it rewards emotional control. And Paraguay has often built its identity around exactly those qualities. They are comfortable making games uncomfortable, comfortable frustrating opponents, comfortable slowing momentum, comfortable surviving difficult moments. The question is whether they can do it long enough against a United States team that will almost certainly have moments of overwhelming energy. That is where the first invisible battle begins. Not with tactics, not with talent, with time. How long can Paraguay keep the match emotionally neutral? Because the United States wants momentum. Momentum is one of the most powerful forces in football. A strong start, a dangerous attack, a loud crowd, a sequence of positive moments. Suddenly, a team begins believing everything is going according to plan. Confidence grows. Movements become sharper. Decisions become quicker. The game starts flowing. Paraguay's challenge may be preventing that emotional wave from ever arriving. And if they succeed, a completely different match emerges. Imagine the opening 20 minutes. The United States attacks. The crowd is energized. The expectation is obvious. But the goal never comes. The opportunities are blocked. The attacks break down. The clock keeps moving. What happens then? That question may be more important than any tactical diagram, because frustration is one of football's most dangerous emotions. The longer expectations remain unmet, the heavier they become. Fans become anxious. Players become impatient. Decision-making changes. Risk increases. Structure can disappear. Suddenly, a team stops playing the match in front of them and starts playing the result they expected to have already achieved. That is where Paraguay becomes dangerous, not necessarily because they dominate, but because they survive. And survival can slowly become belief. The longer a difficult opponent remains alive, the more confidence they gain. A match that felt controlled suddenly feels uncertain. A crowd that expected comfort begins sensing danger. And uncertainty is exactly what underdogs want. But before we go too far down that road, there is another side to this story. Because Paraguay carries its own vulnerabilities. The freedom of lower expectations sounds appealing, yet it comes with challenges. Long periods without possession can be exhausting. Defending requires concentration. Defending for 90 minutes requires extraordinary concentration. One lapse, one lost runner, one poorly timed decision. Everything changes. That is the hidden burden Paraguay carries into this match. If the United States can move the ball quickly enough and force Paraguay into repeated defensive decisions, concentration becomes a resource. And resources eventually run out, especially under sustained pressure. The longer Paraguay spends defending, the greater the chance that one small crack becomes decisive. So while Paraguay may be comfortable frustrating opponents, they must also avoid becoming trapped inside their own defensive shell. Because there is a difference between controlling frustration and inviting pressure. That distinction could define the entire evening. Then there is the question of recent momentum. Every team arrives at a World Cup carrying a story. Sometimes those stories are obvious. Sometimes they remain hidden until the tournament begins. The United States enters with growing belief in its ability to compete against strong opposition. There is confidence in the squad, confidence in the environment, confidence in the opportunity. But confidence is fragile. It grows quickly and disappears quickly. One difficult match can create questions. One poor result can create doubt. World Cups move fast. Narratives change overnight. Paraguay understands this as well. For them, belief may come from resilience rather than expectation. The ability to remain organized. The ability to stay emotionally balanced. The ability to endure difficult moments without panic. Those qualities often matter more than people realize, especially in matches where emotions threaten to take control. And make no mistake, emotions will be everywhere in this game, because beneath the tactical battle sits a psychological contest that may prove even more important. Who handles setbacks better? It sounds simple, but it could decide everything. Imagine the United States concedes first. The stadium falls silent. The pressure instantly doubles. The game plan changes. The emotional landscape changes. Now every attack carries urgency. Every missed chance feels larger. Every minute becomes more stressful. How does the team respond? Do they remain patient? Or do they start forcing opportunities? That response could define the match. Now flip the scenario. Imagine Paraguay concedes early. What happens then? What? Can they continue following their plan? Can they remain disciplined? Can they avoid opening dangerous spaces while chasing the game? Or does the match begin drifting exactly where the United States wants it to go? Again, uncertainty appears. Again, neither side owns a clear advantage. Because every strength creates a new question, and every answer creates another challenge. Then comes the tactical story hidden beneath the emotion. Most fans will focus on goals. But goals are often consequences. The real battle begins much earlier. It begins in the spaces neither team wants to surrender. The United States thrives when opponents are forced into difficult decisions. When defenders must choose between stepping forward or protecting space behind them. When movement creates hesitation. When hesitation creates openings. The American attack becomes dangerous when opponents feel stretched. Paraguay's objective may be preventing those difficult decisions from ever becoming necessary. Keeping distances compact, reducing space, turning potentially dangerous attacks into harmless possession. This sounds simple, it isn't, because every minute spent maintaining defensive discipline requires concentration, and concentration becomes harder as fatigue arrives, which introduces another invisible factor: energy, not just physical energy. Mental energy, the ability to remain alert when the match becomes chaotic, the ability to maintain discipline when emotions rise. the ability to keep making correct decisions late in the game. Many World Cup matches are not won by brilliance. They are won by whichever team continues making good decisions longest. And late-game decisions could become critical here. Because if the match remains level entering the final stages, pressure will reach its highest point. The crowd will sense urgency. Players will sense opportunity. Managers will sense risk. That is when football becomes unpredictable. One mistake, one moment of courage, one lapse of concentration, one unexpected hero. Everything changes. And speaking of heroes, there are individual battles hidden throughout this matchup, not necessarily the stars everyone is discussing. Sometimes the most important player in a World Cup match is the one nobody notices. The defender who wins crucial duels, the midfielder who controls tempo, the player who remains calm while everyone else becomes emotional, the substitute who changes momentum, the veteran who settles nerves, the young player who embraces the moment instead of fearing it. Those are the stories that often emerge unexpectedly, and this match feels perfectly positioned for one of those moments. Because both teams possess players capable of changing the emotional direction of the game, a single successful run, a single interception, a single courageous decision. Small moments become massive moments in tournament football, which leads to perhaps the most intriguing question of all. Who actually needs this result more? Not mathematically, emotionally. The answer is not always obvious. Sometimes the team expected to win becomes desperate. Sometimes the underdog becomes fearless. Sometimes the pressure of needing a result creates mistakes. Sometimes it creates extraordinary performances. The challenge is knowing which version will appear. And nobody truly knows before kickoff. That uncertainty is what makes World Cup football so compelling. Because football is not played on paper, it is played in moments. Moments of confidence, moments of fear, moments of courage, moments of hesitation. Now imagine another possibility. The match remains scoreless deep into the second half. At first, that scenario appears favorable for Paraguay. But is it? A tense, scoreless game can affect both teams differently. The United States may feel increasing pressure from expectations, yet Paraguay may begin feeling the pressure of opportunity. The closer victory feels, the harder it can become to reach for it. Players start protecting possibilities. Risk disappears. Fear enters. The psychology shifts again. Another hidden battle emerges. Another reason certainty becomes impossible. And then there is the tournament itself. Because no World Cup match exists in isolation. Every result affects future confidence, future preparation, future belief. One victory can transform an entire campaign. One defeat can create questions that linger for weeks. Players know this. Managers know this. Fans know this. Even if nobody openly discusses it, that reality shapes every decision, every challenge, every run, every pass. The tournament narrative is always present, quietly influencing the match beneath the match. Which brings us back to the hidden battle nobody is talking about. Not talent, not tactics, not statistics. Pressure. The United States must manage the pressure of opportunity. Paraguay must manage the pressure of survival. The United States must harness expectation without becoming consumed by it. Paraguay must embrace freedom without losing discipline. One team must avoid frustration. The other must avoid complacency. One team wants momentum. The other wants patience. One team may try to accelerate the game. The other may try to control its emotional rhythm. And somewhere between those competing forces, the true match will unfold. That is why this game is so difficult to predict, because the outcome may not belong to the most talented team. It may belong to the calmest team, the most disciplined team, the team that handles uncertainty better, the team that remains emotionally balanced when the pressure reaches its highest point. As kickoff approaches, countless questions remain unanswered. What happens if Paraguay scores first? What happens if the United States starts nervously? What happens if frustration begins spreading through the stadium? What happens if Paraguay spends too long defending? What happens if an unexpected player changes the match? What happens if the game remains level entering the final minutes? Every possibility feels realistic. Every scenario feels dangerous. And that is exactly what makes this matchup fascinating. Because beneath the headlines, beneath the predictions, beneath the discussions about favorites and underdogs, another contest is already taking place. A contest between expectation and freedom, between pressure and belief, between patience and urgency, The team that wins that invisible battle may ultimately win the match itself. And until the first whistle blows, nobody truly knows which side will handle it better. That is why this is more than just USA versus Paraguay. It is a World Cup mystery waiting to unfold. And that is why fans should be watching every minute.